I think, again, going back to this whole COVID business and the lock-ins, and it's a pretty dark time, really. And I think at times like these, and there are many times in life when we could feel in a similar way, but we can feel pretty at sea with our faith. And it might not just be this time, but perhaps when things aren't going the way we want them to go, when perhaps relationships are falling apart, or things at work are going badly, or there's health problems. And it's as if all the foundations that we had beforehand, everything that seemed to be solid, all of a sudden is gone. And it's as if we're adrift in a boat in the middle of a storm. And no longer can we see clearly where we're going. There's wind and there's rain, and we just seem to be getting battered. And we don't know where. We're just drifting off. We don't know where we're going or how things are going to end up. And I think in a sense that is happening to a lot of people just now with this lockdown. And because of that, we can feel that maybe, why is God doing this to me? After all I've done, after my faithfulness, why is this happening to me? Why am I going through this? Has God forgotten me? Forgotten perhaps my faithfulness? And there can be a temptation to throw in the towel. If he's forgotten me, well, I'm going to forget him. I think this is probably the sort of feelings that the recipients of the letter to the Hebrews were going through. That all their hard work, everything they were doing, seemed to be for nothing because of the persecution, the hardships that they were facing. And the writer of the Hebrews is giving them encouragement. Again, it's a book of encouragement, not to give up under these trials. Would God be so unjust to forget all the good that you have done, the love you have for his name, or the services you've done and are still doing for the saints? God wouldn't forget. And the writer encourages them. Our one desire is that every one of you should go on showing the same earnestness to the end. Because when we get battered and beaten, when things are going badly, we tend to, we start to give up. And the start to give up is by that earnestness, the earnestness that we used to have, that zeal that we used to have flags. And we do it, but we don't put our heart into it. We kind of just do it. And it's kind of, that'll do, because really that's all I want to give because of what's happened. And he's saying, go on showing the same earnestness to the perfect fulfillment of our hopes. Never grow careless, but imitate those who have the faith and the perseverance to inherit the promises. To inherit the promises. And then he starts speaking about his promises and how God is always faithful to his promises. If he makes a promise, he will keep it, because God is truth and he is not a liar. And so when he says, he does. And the writer takes the example of Abraham, who was an old man, and when he calls Abraham out of Ur, Abraham's already old, Sarah is barren, and he promises to make his children as many as the stars of heaven, and that all the nations will be blessed by him, and use his name as a blessing. And Abraham responds in faith. God has promised it. He says, go, and so he goes because God has made a promise. Does he see the promise immediately? We expect the promise. We've kind of got the mentality of what do you call it? The instantaneous gratification. We go to the burger place and we get the burgers immediately. We don't want to wait. And it's the same with God. We don't want to wait. Lord, you promised it. Give it to me now. Abraham had to wait 25 years before he would start to see the fulfillment of that promise with Isaac. He believed in the promise made by God. He trusted in his word. And then after he even was willing to give his son Isaac, and this is what the writer is talking about, because he was willing to give his son, because of his faith, the Lord not only said he would make his descendants as many as the stars of heaven, he made an oath. An oath, I swear by my own self, reinforcing this promise, you can trust me. And so Abraham was rewarded for his faith, and the writer's encouraging the readers, you and I, to take hold of that promise, to trust in that promise. And he speaks about another promise, another anchor. Not only has God made this promise that we can trust in, but he has given us another anchor. And when we're adrift or at sea and in a storm, we need an anchor to hold fast so that we don't get drawn away, blown away by the tide, the wind, and the waves. We need an anchor. And he speaks about this anchor. Who is the anchor? What is this anchor that we're to hold fast to that he speaks of? The anchor is Jesus Christ. The one who, when he prayed on our behalf for our salvation, for our reconciliation, to be freed from the powers of sin and darkness. And all his words and actions sprung out of that prayer. His whole life was directed to that. And so he who goes through the veil to the Father, carrying not the blood of goats and animals, but his own blood on our behalf, how much more can we trust in him? So be encouraged. That is the message that the writer to the Hebrews, that the Lord is giving us today. Whatever the storm you're going through, whatever the difficulty you're going through, you have not been abandoned. God has said, I will be with you. I will never desert you. You are mine. And the Lord Jesus is in heaven, interceding for us before the throne of God every moment. So we hold fast to our faith. We trust in his promises.